They drink a strong, psychoactive brew, ayahuasca. Tourists often join in.
I was 6 when I first took ayahuasca.
And this indigenous remedy is attracting a growing number of visitors.
My peripheral vision is better now, clearer.
Muito mais fácil.
The Huni Kuin are profiting from Brazil's ayahuasca boom, which has long reached major cities like Rio de Janeiro. This is one of many ayahuasca churches.
We drink a brew with incredible powers.
With ayahuasca, I get to know myself, change my ways, and become a better person.
Researchers have also discovered ayahuasca's medicinal benefits.
It can serve as a remedy for mental illnesses like depression and PTSD, as well as addictions to cocaine, tobacco, and crack.
A journey to the places where ayahuasca's influence is growing. On the trail of the psychoactive brew, we make a pit stop in Acre, a state in Brazil's Amazon basin. After departing from Rio de Janeiro and traveling thousands of kilometers on 3 scheduled flights, we charter a plane and fly over untouched Amazon rainforest. As we make our descent, more and more pastures for cattle grazing appear. Then, we land on this bumpy runway. We arrive in Jordão, a small municipality that's among the poorest in Brazil. Along with the many indigenous people we meet, we're struck by the colorfully painted walls of the homes and the spiritual temples. From here, we travel by boat, on the river. Led by cacique, or chief, Ibã Huni Kuin. As an indigenous leader of this region, he's concerned by recent developments.
Here, there are many cattle breeders who are destroying our primeval forest. We make sure they don't reach our indigenous territory.
Together with his son Bina, we embark on a 4-hour journey upriver, passing by countless aldeias, or villages, that belong to the indigenous Huni Kuin. In the evening, we finally reach Chief Ibã's village. Time to offload our gear and get ready for bed. We're at the very western edge of Brazil, close to the border with Peru. Cacique Ibã Huni Kuin is the village chief. He leads the ayahuasca ceremonies. Plus, he knows and sings the ancient songs of their ancestors, which are important to the Huni Kuin. He had to take action to prevent some of the verses and traditions from being forgotten.
Pai dele já faleceu, né?
When my grandfather died, much of the knowledge of our people was in danger of disappearing with him. Then my father and I wrote down the words to the old songs and preserved them so they wouldn't be lost.
Fugiu, foi embora.
Today, the Huni Kuin, a musical people, are opening up to tourists from across Brazil. And Chief Ibã makes one thing clear from the start. His people are closely connected to nature.
Eu fiz assim para evitar.
I painted this to show everyone that this tree should grow in peace. It has many scars already. We call this kapok tree Master of the Water. Where it stands, water flows.
Chief Ibã shows us the leaf of the chacruner, a plant belonging to the coffee family. And a bit farther along, a liana of the carpi vine. These are the basic ingredients needed to make ayahuasca.
You must cook it for several hours, or up to an entire day. The remaining liquid is the strong ayahuasca, which enlightens you and sends you on a journey of discovery.
Thousands of kilometers away, neurologists are also preoccupied with ayahuasca. Braulio Araújo began conducting research into brain activity during ayahuasca intoxication back in 2006. Globally, he's a pioneer in this field.
Para a gente fazer essa compreensão mais profunda dos efeitos da ayahuasca.
We wanted to understand what ayahuasca triggers in the brain. For the first studies, volunteers came to the hospital and drank ayahuasca. Then we analyzed their brain activity with the help of an MRI.
This gave the neurologist his first major findings.
A gente identificou que a ayahuasca atua basicamente sobre 3 mecanismos.
We noticed that ayahuasca activates 3 mechanisms. Visions develop because ayahuasca evidently has the same effect on the brain as vivid dreaming. The second one is self-perception. It makes us more keenly aware of our own thoughts and feelings. The third mecanism is that ayahuasca disrupts the way various regions of the brain communicate with each other. The resulting effect could help consumers gain new perspectives.
Abrir pouco a possibilidade que o cérebro ganhe novas perspectivas.
Meanwhile, back with the Huni Kuin, the men are performing a harvest dance. Along with music, the Huni Kuin practiced traditional weaving. This became more difficult with the arrival of rubber tappers, outsiders who harvested the sap or latex from rubber trees.
Back then, 50 years ago, it was tough for us to plant cotton and weave it. The white invaders had forbidden us to do that. Today, it's different, and we're passing this craft on to our children.
They eat couscous, cassava, and meat only if the hunt has been successful. The Huni Kuin lead a simple life, a part of a circular economy. Their ritual takes place once a month, starting in the evening. The Huni Kuin produce the brown ayahuasca brew just once a year. It's poured from this plastic bottle into a copper-colored cup with Ireland on it, for whatever reason.
We use ayahuasca to cleanse our souls, and we learn what we as people want to achieve, both mentally and spiritually. Tonight, the light of the snake will enchant us in green, yellow, and black.
Verde, amarelo, preto.
Before things get underway, face paint is applied. Then Chief Ibã and his son serve ayahuasca to all those present, including the tourists. In their language, Hausch means peace, harmony, and love, all at once. Adults receive a full glass. Children, age 6 and over, less than half a glass.
I want to get away from materialism and live a more spiritual life. To alter my consciousness to be like the planet's indigenous peoples.
Chief Ibã chants ancient verses handed down through the generations.
I have a heightened sensitivity to everything that's happening in the forest. The light, the sounds, the forest life.
At some point, the chief's son, Bina, takes over, along with his guitar.
With ayahuasca, my voice becomes stronger. Without it, I can't sing that way.
After an hour, participants' visual perception changes. Some want to keep their thoughts to themselves and use the time to reassess things. Within a few hours, the tourists start to vomit. Their stomachs reject the bitter brew. Yet they're free to drink a second dose if they wish. Because for the Huni Kuin, vomiting is a form of cleansing. They claim they've yet to experience any horror trips. During the period when Brazil's military dictatorship had a road built straight through the Amazon, ayahuasca became known throughout Brazil. Back then, the generals kept pushing further into the primeval forest. When a commission traveled to Acre to study ayahuasca, many were astonished by the results. The military permitted the consumption of ayahuasca during religious ceremonies.
Unlike elsewhere, in Brazil we can research ayahuasca well, as it was legalized for religious purposes. Because although Brazil is actually a very conservative country, we Brazilians are also quite spiritual. There are so many religions here.
One can be found not far from the famous Sugarloaf Mountain in Rio, at the Santo Daime Church. Ayahuasca is the focal point of its religious ceremonies. Emerson Agulha has been a church member for 10 years. He likes the mix of natural religion, Catholic faith, and Afro-Brazilian elements.
These saints are important to us. They assist us on our spiritual journey. When I arrived here, I needed help and was received with a lot of warmth. Today, too, we care for those who come to us.
Matias Aguia is one of 5 newcomers here today. Leader Lucio Ampierre explains how things work. He also points out the risks. For instance, participants might feel nauseous and vomit.
I want to have a transcendental experience, so I must go through with it from start to finish on Saturday, even if I feel afraid.
One question Lucio Ampierre is often asked, is ayahuasca addictive?
Ayahuasca is like the antidote that makes you immune to drugs. Look, the door to our church is open, yet there's no lineup of addicts demanding ayahuasca.
In Natal, neurologist Braulio Araújo has reached a similar conclusion. He says DMT, the hallucinogenic alkaloid that's ayahuasca's active ingredient, doesn't cause addiction.
Ayahuasca ela é segura. A principal molécula psicoativa da
Ayahuasca is safe. The major active ingredient is endogenous. It's already present in our bodies. Ayahuasca isn't addictive, and overdosing on it is practically impossible, since instead of the usual 100 milliliters, you'd have to drink 30 liters of it, and no one can consume that much water.
30 litros é difícil de beber até de água.
But for Braulio Araújo, another finding is even more important. He also tested ayahuasca on people who suffer from depression.
A gente viu que mesmo nesses pacientes que não
We noticed positive changes in patients who had previously taken other medications to no effect.
nos sintomas de depressão desses pacientes, mas
And quickly, after one day, there was already a reduction in depressive symptoms.
Dia depois da experiência com ayahuasca, os pacientes já apresentavam.
So psychedelic substances like ayahuasca can also be an alternative to conventional medications.
Como uma alternativa única de resposta rápida, terapêutica rápida.
This opens up the prospect of using ayahuasca and other substances for quicker treatments of mental illnesses, such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD, or addictions to drugs like cocaine, tobacco, and crack.
Ansiedade, estresse pós-traumático ou uso abusivo de substâncias como cocaína, tabaco e crack.
For centuries, ayahuasca has been part of the rites of many of the Amazon's indigenous peoples in Brazil and Peru, including the Huni Kuin. Today, the Pajé, the village healer, is showing visitors around their territory. He knows every plant here and calls this one toucan's tail.
As a hot tea, it's a remedy for sore throats.
Growing nearby is another special leaf whose sour juice is said to possess healing powers. The Huni Kuin call it the blood of the forest.
Tranquilo, será? Tudo bem. É bem mais fraquinho que sananga, né? A visão periférica aumenta.
My peripheral vision's better now, and I see the world around me more clearly.
Olhando pro lado com mais nitidez.
This is Rocinha, Rio's largest favela. Emerson Agulha from the Santo Daime Church lives and works here. He operates a tattoo studio. Emerson tells us he used to be addicted to cocaine and other drugs.
It was a crazy time. I used to party all night, lots of sex and alcohol, but little sleep. I'd work the next day, and at night do the same thing all over again.
But Emerson claims he's been clean ever since joining the Santo Daime Church. Before the ceremony, everyone must register at the entrance. They're given a chip, which they'll exchange for the first dose of ayahuasca. Newcomers like Matthias included. Longtime members such as Emerson don a white and green costume.
The founder of our church, Master Irineo, received the dress code from God. In his visions, Irineo saw the Virgin Mary, who told him what our sect should look like.
At 6:30 p.m., believers trade in their chips for the first dose of ayahuasca. This Santo Daime Church opened its doors some 40 years ago and follows the rules set out by its founder, Master Irineo.
Here is the battalion of singles. The married people dance there. And over there are the church leaders in uniform.
The men and women dance separately. But they're all united by a desire to work on their own psyches. For the newcomers, this can prove a bit daunting at first. After 2 hours, it's time for the second dose. For Matthias, too. Along with the Catholic faith and communion with nature, ayahuasca is the holy sacrament and the undisputed focal point of the church service here.
We drink a brew that holds incredible powers and praise the earth at this celebration for us and all the life on the planet.
Later, they drink a third dose of ayahuasca and induct a new member into the church. And how is Matthias doing?
I had a vision. Someone was standing behind me. I don't know yet whether I'll take part here all the time. It's taxing. Who knows what I'll feel like tomorrow?
For a few participants, the murky brew has taken its toll. They vomited and are now resting. After 10 hours, the ceremony is over.
It lifts you up. Look who's sending you. Your master, the queen, the divinity. Our hymn book is our compass during the ceremony. Keep your eye on it, or you can get lost.
How does Lucio Ampierre respond to critics who call his church a cult?
Only if you drink ayahuasca yourself can you know what it feels like. Only then can you recognize the worth of this substance and the light it brings.
Back with the Huni Kuin on the day after their ceremony. Chief Ibã chants the verses again, while his son, Bina, paints what they represent: snakes, trees, gods of nature.
My father sang this, and here's what it signifies. Yobu is the snake. Mawa means people. Aimbu stands for woman.
Their paintings have become famous. Hundreds now hang in major museums in Sao Paulo, in Chile, and the German city of Munich. For Ibã, it's also a lucrative business.
I plan to use my earnings to buy clear-cut land and reforest it. I know how that works, and I want to do my bit.
Braulio Araújo hopes ayahuasca will be approved as a medication.
We believe that consumers could be their own therapists, because when you're under its influence, you can't deceive yourself.
The Santo Daime Church aims to attract many more members around the world.
Without ayahuasca, my life would merely be average because I wouldn't know my own weaknesses.
Estaria dando importância nas minhas limitações, né?
Chief Ibã hopes to sell lots of paintings and be able to contribute to the protection of the rainforest.
I don't know why museums exhibit my paintings, but as an indigenous person I'm pleased to be able to show my works there. It's incredible. Before we never had artists the way white people do. I'm a newcomer who stumbled into this world.
More and more people in Brazil and around the world are discovering ayahuasca, the elixir from the Amazon.